All right, we are live, ladies and germs, and whew, what a what a Talladega race, huh? Um, the GEICO 500 at Talladega has always been one of my most anticipated races of the year because it seems like every year it's a contender for race of the year, and for the most part, it's not filled with stupid ass controversial bullshit. And that's pretty much what we got tonight for the GEICO 500. Now, were there some downer moments? Sure. But the crazy action and that last lap, I think more than made up for it. It completely overpowers all the negatives that this race had. And we're going to be getting into all that. So, saddle up, lock and load. It's time for your Talladega review. This is the fuel. What's happening, ladies and germs? This is the Packer Man, and welcome to tonight's second edition of the Fuel. Of course, I had the Bristol Dirt review earlier, and tonight for the second review, we're going to be talking about the GEICO 500 from the Talladega Superspeedway. Man, my hair looks like crap. I need to get it cut. But my first thoughts on the GEICO 500. I think when you weigh all the circumstances, compared to the first 9 races of this season, and you kind of weigh them against each other, I would say that the GEICO 500 was probably the best race of the season thus far. I say thus far because there is room to improve. Because while this race had its ups, it's also had its downs. Hence why the name of the episode is called Roller Coaster Ride. It was like a roller coaster. You go up and down and up and down. There were a lot of parts of this race where they were in a big choo-choo train, which made watching the race a bit of a chore at times. And then, of course, there was that second stage that was messy as all hell. But that third and final stage went completely green, believe it or not. We didn't have 50 million cautions in that third stage and then a bullshit green-white checkered to finish it off. No, we actually had a green flag run to end the race. 62 laps. Almost a third of the entire race was ran green in that final stage. And when you combine that with the crazy ass racing, the high number of lead changes, and then that batshit bonkers last lap finish, and without all the stupid ass controversy that usually is associated with that yellow line, then you get what you had in this race tonight. Damn entertaining. And what I would consider the best race of the year so far. But this race was all over the place. But it's also one of the reasons why the GEICO 500 is one of my favorite races to review, because it typically doesn't have that stupid controversial bullshit that the fall race seems to have every single time. It's usually a very entertaining race, and we usually see some crazy shenanigans on the last lap, and this was no exception. Yeah, we're going to have some choo-choo shit here and there, but I think the action that we saw greatly outweighs all the negatives that we saw. So that's basically my opening rant for this edition. Not really much to say other than some pretty positive things, and not much in news of the week because a lot of that was covered in the previous review earlier today. So let's go ahead and get into it, and then we can get it straight into the race review. Now, obviously, when we start with news of the week, we start with the numbers from last week, the viewership numbers. And Bristol Dirt pulled in 4 million viewers last week on Easter Sunday night. Now, why this is kind of significant is the fact that they were able to pull in 4 million viewers on a Sunday night on Easter, and this race actually pulled in almost 1 million more viewers than the Bristol Dirt race last year. So this race actually had a major uptick in viewership compared to last year. I mean, when you put all that together, and when you combine that with higher ticket sales, even though it didn't look full, they still had the spring race's highest ticket sales in quite some time. When you put all of that together, it's kind of easy to understand why the Bristol Dirt race is coming back for 2023. Now, when that race is going to take place, we don't know yet, and obviously that will probably be a part of the schedule reveal later on this year. But we'll have to wait and see. But the big news that kind of came out during this week: Kyle Busch's future with JGR may be in doubt, because he was interviewed about that, considering that his major sponsor, Mars Chocolate, is leaving at the end of the season. The M&M's car and all that stuff. They're leaving at the end of the season. And not only that, this is a contract year for Kyle Busch. So, despite the fact that they did get the win last week at Bristol, and he's currently running top 5 in points right now, there is some doubt as to whether or not he'll be back at JGR, and even he says he doesn't know. And if he doesn't get a contract renewal with JGR, he doesn't think that there will be any other places that he can go. Someone of his caliber not having a place to go if JGR doesn't re-sign him? No. He'll be the hottest free agent on the market. One of the hottest free agents in NASCAR history, whether you like the guy or not. So that kind of came out this week. Joe Gibbs kind of addressed it. He said, yeah, we're working hard to try to find sponsorships for next year to replace Mars, obviously. I mean, let's be completely honest here. I mean, yes, Kyle Busch is a very controversial driver, but there's no denying that the guy is one of the best to ever, suit up in a race car, I mean, 60 career Cup Series wins. He has a pair of championships. Still doesn't have that Daytona 500 win yet, though. But I'm telling you, if JGR doesn't somehow find a way to re-sign him, I mean, what the fuck is wrong with you, honestly? I mean, I know it probably is all going to come down to sponsorship, but come on, dude. I mean, last year, when you look at 2020, it was 2020 was definitely a bit of a downer year for Kyle. And then you go into 2021, he wasn't able to get 2 wins. But then you look at this year, and Kyle Busch has actually been running good this year, and he's currently 4th in points as it stands. So hold on one second. Let me Let me pull up his stats for 2022 real quick. Kyle Busch. What are his statistics so far in 2022? Out of 10 races, he has a victory, 3 top 5s, and 7 top 10s. And he has an average finish of 11.2. I mean, that sounds pretty damn good to me. You know, he's finished in the top 10, 7 out of 10 races so far. I mean, that's a 70%, you know, completion percentage as far as top 10s are concerned, and he does have a win. Probably should have 2, but, you know, it is what it is. But, I mean, what else do you expect? You know, so if JGR doesn't resign Kyle Busch and somehow gets some sponsorship on board, I mean, they're not trying hard enough. And that's what I'll say about that. But this is a developing story, and we'll keep an eye on it as it develops. And it looks like we're still waiting on tech inspection to be completed. Bob Pocker says that tech at Talladega and Daytona typically takes a little bit longer than other tracks. But I wanted to get this thing started because I really wanted to talk about it. But if tech inspection is complete and, you know, some crazy shit goes down, I will talk about it. Who's rowing? Quit rowing. Busy doing shit. Alright, so not much for news of the week. Of course, I pretty much said all the stuff earlier, but I wanted to save the Kyle Busch thing for this review. But let's go ahead and get into the review itself. Then it's time for the review of the GEICO 500 at Talladega. This is, of course, our 135th episode of the Fuel. Title of the episode is Roller Coaster Ride, because that's what this was. So stages broke down 60, 60, and 68, so fairly even across the board. So let us start with stage number 1. Oh, by the way, there was one portion of the review earlier today where I accidentally forgot to turn my mic back on for a portion of it. So, you know, it is what it is. It's a goof on my part, but now it's too late to go back and fix it now, so it's whatevs. But basically it was the part where I didn't agree with Eric Estep's view on what happened on the interaction between Briscoe and Reddick after the Bristol race. I basically said, "You're fucking nuts, dude," for the most part. And then he backtracked on it not too long afterwards. So, there you go. But that was then. Let's get into the Talladega review. So, stage 1 was 60 laps. There were 2 cars that had to go to the rear of the field. The 77 of Landon Castle, because he failed tech inspection 3 times. So, he also had to do a pass-through after the green. And then Noah Gregson, who's driving for Beard Motorsports, he had to go to the rear for unapproved adjustments. So, we're into stage 1, 60 laps. Christopher Bell started the race from the pole. He leads lap 1. They were 2x2 through the field for much of the first part of the race. We had our first pure lead change when Daniel Suarez took the lead on lap 2. Leaders were still side by side at this point. We had our second pure lead change when Bell took the lead back on lap 4. Truex pulls up behind his teammate to help. We started to get some 3 wide in the pack. Reddick gets hung out in a 4 wide, so that wasn't good for him. Several drivers back out of the draft basically pulled off onto the apron and let the field go by them to kind of stay out of trouble. We had our third pure lead change when Daniel Suarez took the lead back on lap 10. Train was beginning to form on the bottom lane, so it was starting early. Things settled down here in the first part of the race. Petty GMS teammates Ty Dillon and Eric Jones were trying to make some hay on the outside, but it didn't really work. So we had a choo-choo train on the inside lane. Wouldn't be the first time. But Reddick has to go onto pit road and has the hood up on lap 33. And as it turned out, he had a blown engine. And what do you want, sissy? What do you want, mama? Careful. She stepped on my notebook and she nearly fell. Come on, cat, watch out. So as it turned out, the timing belt broke on the 8 car. So he went from nearly winning last week to falling out very early in this race. I need to adjust my camera a little bit. But this would not be the first ECR engine that would blow during this race. We'll get to that in a minute. Pit stops begin en masse on lap 35. Cody Ware spins coming to pit road. What else is new with this guy? And I said on Twitter, this guy needs to get the fuck out of the Cup Series. This guy is trash as a race car driver. The only reason why he is in that car is because his father, Rick Ware, owns the goddamn team. Get him out of that car. He is fucking trash. But anyways, Keselowski gets nabbed for speeding, the first of 2 times that he gets nabbed for speeding. Suarez leads a large group onto pit road on lap 37, and then Ross Chastain gets nabbed for speeding as well. Falls a lap down. Kyle Larson cycles back with the race lead on lap 38. In 30 super speedway races, he had never finished inside the top 5. Wrap your mind around that shit for a second. Bubba Wallace starts leading a line on the outside, and then we start getting some lead changes here. Bubba Wallace takes the lead on lap 51. Kyle Larson fights back, gets the lead back on lap 52. Then Bubba Wallace comes back and leads once again on lap 53. Several lap cars caused a bit of trouble for the leaders, but they were able to stay out of trouble. Then we have our 7th pure lead change in lap 54 when Kyle Larson takes the lead back. 1 second. Got some water this time. Doing 2 reviews in one day is not a good idea. But anyways, so Kyle Larson takes the lead back on lap 54 for a 7th pure lead change of the day. And, you know, as at this point, Bubba and Larson were trading the lead back and forth, which tends to happen. Bubba Wallace took it back on lap 55. And then we got our first caution of the day on lap 57. In a very unusual and very violent accident. Daniel Hemrick actually loses a motor in the 16 car. Because it looked like he got spun in turn 3, but then when the replay played back, it looked like he slowed down quite a bit. And then when you went on to his onboard, you could hear the engine change tune right before that accident happened. It went from to like it was a high-pitched grinding noise. And you know, when the engine changes pitch like that, not a good sign. So it was pretty evident that another ECR engine, which was in the 16 car, had gone kerplooey, which resulted in this accident where Austin Dillon actually hooks him a little bit, although it wasn't his fault. The 16 lost power, and Hemrick got behind on his steering. The car hooked back up the track and into Chase Briscoe, who gets thrown into Chris Buescher, who was riding along the outside lane, and it was a hard hit for Briscoe and for Buescher. Thankfully, it looked like both of them, as well as Hemrick, was able to get out of their cars okay, because that was a hard impact. And Bubba Wallace wins stage number 1 under caution. So everyone comes in for service, and Larson wins the race off pit road. So now we come to stage number 2, which was also 60 laps, and this is when this race got a little bit messy. At least, well, not until like the middle portion of stage 2. The early portion was pretty good. So Kyle Larson leads the start of stage 2. Eric Jones gets the lead on the restart. Larson tries to come back on the inside, and then we get another case of hot potato with the race lead. Kyle Larson takes it on lap 66. Eric Jones the next lap. Then Kyle Larson the next lap after that. So we're up to 11 pure lead changes. Justin Haley, who is in the outside line, checks up, causes a bit of a stack up, which honestly probably should have caused a caution, but thankfully did not happen. And Kyle Busch basically passed them all right up the middle. It was, we were watching from the aerial shot, and it was a pretty incredible shot of him just going right through the middle and passing all those cars. That was pretty amazing. Eric Jones takes the lead back on lap 70. And then Bubba Wallace takes over the lead on lap 74. You had 23-11 teammates on the outside lane. It's Bubba Wallace and Kurt Busch. Eric Jones takes the lead back on lap 75 for a 14th pure lead change. Then we were 2 by 2 through the field once again, so we were getting some pretty good racing there. But then we get our second caution on lap 81 when Greg Biffle stalls in turn 4 because that's the third ECR engine to go pop. Sensing a theme here, huh? But surprisingly, there were no other ECR engine failures during this race. This was actually the last one, but the fact that 3 of them ended up going kerblooey, yeah. Not a good thing, to say the least. Everyone comes in for service. Byron wins the race off pit road this time, so he leads on the restart. Then we get our third caution on lap 86 right afterwards when BJ McLeod loses a right rear wheel. Not a tire, a wheel. Uh-oh. Looks like the crew chief, the jackman, and the tire changer are going to be taking a little vacation for that one. Whoopsie doodle. So Byron leads on the restart, but then we get our fourth caution on lap 90 right afterwards. And this was probably the most bizarre one of the day, where you had 4 cars on the outside lane that were trying to bump draft. Truex was getting bumped by, I believe it was the 43 car of Eric Jones. Joey Logano was bumping the 43, and Bubba Wallace was bump drafting the 22, and the 23 hooks the 22 into the outside wall. The 22 comes back down the track and starts a small pile up. I wouldn't necessarily call this a big one because it was only 8 cars as opposed to, you know, the 15 to 20 that we usually see with pile-ups like this. I would call this not a big one. I would call it a medium one. But the 22 is involved, as well as Austin Cindric, Ty Dillon, Daniel Suarez, Harrison Burton, Cole Custer, Todd Gilliland, and Ricky Stenhouse Jr. all involved in this crash. So it just looked like a case of bump drafting gone bad. So this race got really messy really quick. So Byron leads on the restart, and then they put up a statistic that said Truex was 0 for 68 on super speedways in his Cup career, which is absolutely insane considering that he actually won 3 in a row at Talladega in the Xfinity Series. And he also has a win at Daytona as well in the Xfinity Series. So the fact that he has 0 super speedway wins in the Cup Series is just absolutely mind-boggling to me. So we have Hendrick Motorsports cars 1, 2, 3 at the moment on lap 104. Then we get our 5th caution on lap 106 when Cody Ware gets spun by his teammate David Reagan on the front stretch. It looked like Reagan was trying to do a bit of bump drafting with him and spun the 51 out. So that one I'm not going to blame on Cody Ware. So several cars coming for service on this one, and Byron leads on the restart once again. And we have Hendrick Motorsports now 1, 2, 3, 4 on the inside lane, with Byron in the lead, Elliott in second, Larson in third, and Alex Bowman in fourth. And we get another choo-choo train here. Harvick and Kyle Busch, to their credit, try to make a run on the outside, and then they juke back to the inside. Truex has a run on the outside with help from Kyle Busch near the end of this stage, but I mean, you couldn't really break up the Hendrick Motorsports crowd there at the end of the stage, and Byron wins stage number 2. So, pretty messy second stage, to say the least. Where's Rowan? Huh? What you rowing for? Butthead. Oh, and Junior was also in the booth for this week, and needless to say, he added a lot to the Fox broadcast. Of course, he was on loan from NBC, so it was pretty cool to see Dale Jr. In the Fox broadcast booth because he brings a lot to the NBC broadcasts as well. So that was a pretty cool little deal. And I thought he added a hell of a lot to the broadcast for Fox today. And it seems like Fox has really stepped up its production value on their pre-race shows, from what I've seen, because they're getting a lot more positive reviews on that. I'm pretty sure somebody got in their ear and was like, hey, you know, a lot of people are not really liking these dumb pre-race shows, you know, this cartoony bullshit. Let's try to change things up a little bit. Because I've been seeing a lot more positivity as far as the pre-race shows have been going the past couple weeks. So everyone comes in for service, and Eric Jones wins the race off pit road this time. So now we come to the final stage, stage 3, 68 laps. This entire stage went caution-free. That fifth and final caution on lap 106 was the final caution of the day, because I don't count the stage breaks as cautions. So this final run of race went 62 laps. So that's going to get some big thumbs up for me on that one. I mean, there were portions of the stage where they went choo-choo train, and I was a little bit worried that it would stay like that for the entirety of the stage. But thankfully, that's not the case. Although there were some pretty big stretches where it was choo-choo all the way. So Eric Jones leads the start of stage 3. Blaney pushes Kyle Busch to lead on the restart. Eric Jones fights back on the inside, though. You have a little bit of hot potato between them a little bit. Kyle Busch takes the lead on lap 127 for a 15th pure lead change, and then Bubba bump traps Blaney to the front on lap 129 for a 16th pure lead change of the day. Austin Cindric really starts holding up the outside lane because he had right front fender damage, which was making his car really draggy and really slow, especially if he was the one out front. So it really killed that outside line, and as a result, the choo-choo train forms once again. Chastain, Hamlin, and several others try to organize a second lane up high, but it doesn't really work, at least for a little bit. And then all of a sudden, Bubba moves out into the outside lane, which completely took a lot of people by surprise, and was able to take the lead away from Ryan Blaney for our 17th pure lead change on lap 152. Kyle Busch gets drop kicked to the back of the pack after he gets passed by Ross Chastain, so he was basically the Lone Ranger in the third lane. Eric Jones comes back and takes the lead on lap 153 for 18th pure lead change. Then Bubba Wallace grabs the lead once again on lap 155 for our 19th pure lead change. And then green flag pit stops begin en masse on lap 159. Keselowski gets busted for speeding again, and that would pretty much end his hopes of trying to win this race. Bubba leads a large group to pit road. The Toyotas come in the very next lap. And then there was some contact between Christopher Bell and Kyle Busch coming off of pit road. So what happened was the 62 of Noah Gragson was in front of Kyle Busch. He cut to the left to get underneath of Gragson, and what he didn't know was that Bell was also right there as well, and the two of them actually made contact with Kyle Busch's left rear getting into Christopher Bell's right front, and it actually spun the 20 car around on the inside of the track coming out of the pit lane, and much to everybody's surprise, the race stayed green because Bell was able to get the car back going again, and everybody figured, well, you know, the caution's probably going to come out at some point. Nope. The race stayed green the rest of the way. So it was a tough break for Christopher Bell right there. That was just really bad luck. But Hamlin cycles back with the race lead after basically being nowhere for much of the race. Although his crew would make a pretty big snafu late in this race. But the choo-choo train forms once again. One thing I do have to note, that Progressive commercial with that old guy who tries to not let people turn into their parents, you know, or some shit. That shit is fucking annoying as hell. I'm not gonna lie. Especially that one where he's like, you know, taking shit out of, you know, people's houses and say, well, this refrigerator is not a museum or some shit. And there was one part where he was taking somebody's gnomes out of their front yard and saying they're gone. And it's like, you know what? Here's the thing. If you try to take shit out of my yard, you're getting your ass kicked. You know, that's my shit. You do not fucking touch it. Okay? You know, that old guy just makes me want to fucking belt him right in the mouth. Because it's like, wow, what a fucking condescending dickhead. Sorry, I had to rant a little bit there, because them Progressive commercials are fucking stupid. I really wish they would stop airing them, because they're just fucking headache inducers. Anyways, Larson gets a push from Jones to take the lead from Hamlin for a 20th pure lead change on lap 171. And Hamlin pretty much gets drop kicked back out of the lead draft, at least for a little bit. And that's when shit really starts to really pick up, because Elliott moves up into the front of the outside lane, and all of a sudden they're 2x2 once again. And then we get another case of hot potato, this time between Eric Jones and Kyle Larson for the race lead. Jones takes the lead on lap 177, with Larson taking it back on lap 178. Jones gets loose a little bit on the outside and loses some ground, but he is eventually able to make it back up and retake the lead on lap 182. So we're getting really racy at the front, 2x2 all the way back. Larson takes it back on lap 184, then Eric Jones on lap 185 for 25 pure lead changes so far. And then Hamlin has to pit for fuel because the pit crew didn't put enough fuel in it for him to make it all the way to the end. How do you fuck that up? So that pretty much eliminated Hamlin from trying to win this race. And then we come down to the last lap of the race, and it didn't really get going until they got into turn 3. So Jones was leading Larson with Ross Chastain behind Larson. You know, then things started stacking up with Kurt Busch getting up alongside Chastain. Larson actually has some space between him and Jones, so he's going to have a run on Jones coming down the front stretch. Well, what happens is he gets the run, he tries to make the move on Jones, but unfortunately Kurt Busch was also trying to make a move on him. So, you know, this is the case of everybody going for the win at this point. Unfortunately, Larson's right rear catches Kurt Busch's left front, and it sends Kurt into the wall hard. He comes down and actually collects Bubba Wallace, which sends Bubba into the wall hard. Jones tries to block Larson's move, but he actually ends up killing his own momentum, and Jones actually ended up finishing 6th in this whole deal after taking the white flag as the leader. And then Larson pretty much gets hung on the outside and loses a couple spots, but still gets his first top 5 finish. But coming on the inside, staying on the bottom, was the watermelon man himself, Ross Chastain. He basically let everybody make the mistakes in front of him, and he snags the win at Talladega for his 2nd career victory and 2nd of this season. Austin Dillon comes home in 2nd, and Kyle Busch sneaks in to take 3rd and can't get off the keyboard. Tell you what, Trackhouse Racing is for real this year. I mean, Chastain has been, or not Chastain, but Suarez has been struggling a little bit, although in this case, I mean, he just got taken out in a wreck that wasn't really his own doing, so that was just bad luck for him. But Chastain is proving what a driver he is, and what an acquisition by Trackhouse to bring him on board to drive that one car, you know, after acquiring Chip Ganassi Racing, which Chastain was a part of. So, I mean, hell of an acquisition by Trackhouse. Only their 2nd season, and now they have their 2nd win in company history in the Cup Series. Chastain is turning out to be the next big star in the Cup Series. He got his first win earlier this year in dramatic fashion at Circuit of the Americas, and he does it here again, only this time he didn't have to nudge anybody out of the way. They did it for him. So he'll take it for sure. And I'm going to check Twitter real quick. And looks like Ross Chastain's #1 car clears post-race inspection. Today's Talladega victory is official. Tech complete, no issues. Chastain is the winner. Cars that are going back to the wind tunnel and R&D center: Larson, Truex, Bowman, Harvick, Hamlin, and Keselowski. Not necessarily for penalties, they're just checking shit out. Of course, when Keselowski's went that one time, he ended up with a huge penalty, so you never know. But tech inspection is complete. Looks like it was completed 18 minutes ago, so while I was in the middle of doing the review portion here. So everything is official. So the results are final. So congrats to Ross Chastain on scoring his second win. And here's the other thing that's kind of crazy. This is the second consecutive race where we had a last lap pass for the win. And it's the second consecutive race where the winner of the race led just one lap. That's pretty nuts. Back-to-back races, we've had last lap passes. How often does that happen? And how often has it been where the winner of the race led just one lap in back-to-back races? Pretty crazy, to say the least. But with all that out of the way, let's go ahead and get into the stats and awards section of the show. Alright, so your statistics from this race. Total laps, 188 laps, 60, 60, and 68. Overall lead changes, we had 41 overall lead changes, which is the second highest total of the season. Could not overtake Atlanta for the most overall lead changes of the season, but they did tie. This race did tie Talladega did tie Atlanta for the most pure lead changes of the season, with 26 pure lead changes. So very good there. 5 cautions, which is an improvement from last week. We had 13 at Bristol, but here's the number that is the big one right here. You ready for this? Green flag passes. There were 8,025 green flag passes in this race, with an average of 50.2 per lap. Both of them season highs. It's not even close. The previous high was like 6,400 or something like that. And I think it was at Daytona that had that number. It was either Daytona or Atlanta. But new season high for green flag passes in a race, and the average. 8,000 green flag passes and 50.2 per average per green flag lap. That is nuts. So here are the other awards. Lap leader award goes to William Byron, who led 38 laps but got shuffled out at the end. Ended up finishing 15th. Star of the race, as my cat is knocking shit over. Star of the race, I am going to give it to Kyle Larson, believe it or not. Because in 30 prior super speedway races, he had never finished inside the top 5. Either because he had some kind of engine problem or he was involved in a wreck of some sort. But not today. He ended up finishing in 4th position, so he finally gets that first top 5 in a super speedway race in his Cup career, so he gets the Star of the Race award for this week. Reject of the race. They might say, well, it might be Bubba Wallace for causing that big wreck. No. Was it Cody Ware for causing, spinning on pit road? No. It was something that had multiple failures in this race. The ECR engines. There were 3 ECR engines that ended up blowing in this race. One of which caused a pretty nasty accident. So, yeah. ECR engines get the reject of the race award for Talladega. Alright, so race results and point standings for Talladega. Well, after Talladega. Ross Chastain with the win, led just to 1 lap. Austin Dillon sneaks through to finish 2nd. Of course, that's the second time this week that the 3 car finished in the runner-up spot. Yesterday, Jeffrey Earnhardt, driving the 3 car, made some moves reminiscent of his grandfather in that last lap and ended up getting a runner-up finish right behind a car that's owned by Dale Sr.'s son, Dale Jr. Lots of Earnhardt stuff going on there. Kyle Busch somehow snuck through all of that, ended up in 3rd. Kyle Larson led 32 laps, ends up in 4th, his first top 5 finish at a super speedway race. Martin Truex Jr. with a very quiet run in 5th. Eric Jones, feel so bad for him. He was the leader coming to the white flag, and then he was the leader coming off of turn 4, made that move to block Larson, and it ended up screwing him in the end. He ends up in 6th place. It was still a good run, though. Led 25 laps. Chase Elliott in 7th. Michael Mcdowell with his 2nd consecutive top 10 finish. He actually finished top 10 last week at Bristol, and he gets another top 10 here with an 8th place finish at Talladega. You have Alex Bowman coming home in 9th, and Kevin Harvick rounds out the top 10. So even though he's still not up there, he's still somehow managing top 10 finishes. Point standings, 10 races into the season. Chase Elliott extends his points lead over Ryan Blaney to 21. So even though Chase has not won yet this season, he has still been pretty damn consistent. Consistent enough to be the points leader. And even though, it's like, well, isn't William Byron the championship leader? Yes and no. In the playoff standings, Byron is still the point leader. But in terms of the regular season championship, Chase Elliott is still the points leader by 21 points, which is by no means a safe lead because you can gain or lose 60 points per race. So the points lead can switch on a dime week to week. But Ryan Blaney drops to 21 points back. William Byron is 3rd. Kyle Busch moves up to 4th. So he's running top 5 in points right now, even though he's 56 points out. Alex Bowman moves up to 5th. Yeah, what a hack Bowman is, and yet he's top 5 in points. Yeah, good job, Hamlin. Or where the fuck are you at? You're not even top 20 in points, Hamlin. And yet you're calling Bowman a hack after Martinsville last year? Get the fuck out of here. I mean, today wasn't his fault. It was more his crew's fault, but yeah. I mean, he does have the win at Richmond, but other than that, what the fuck has Hamlin done this year? I mean, what a difference a year has made. I mean, last year he was finishing top 5 seemingly every week, and now this year, other than the win at Richmond, he hasn't really done jack shit, which is pretty crazy. Logano is 6th, Larson is 7th, Truex 8th, Ross Chastain with his win moves up to 9th. Eric Almirola rounds out the top 10. Then you have Kevin Harvick, Chase Briscoe, Austin Dillon, Christopher Bell, Tyler Reddick, and Austin Cindric rounding out the top 16. And then you have Eric Jones, Kurt Busch, Daniel Suarez, and Chris Buescher rounding out the top 20. NASCAR standings with F1 points. Looks like this. Byron leads the way with 150 points, but Ross Chastain gains some points on him and is now just 8 back. And again, this is just for shits and giggles. What it would look like with F1 with the current F1 point system. And right now, Chastain is just 8 back. Kyle Larson moves up to 3rd. Then you have Blaney, Elliott, Busch, Logano, Bowman, Truex, and Reddick in the top 10. Then 11th through 20, you have Briscoe, Bell, Austin Dillon, Daniel Suarez, Eric Almirola, Kevin Harvick, Eric Jones, Denny Hamlin, Kurt Busch, and Austin Cindric. And then the rest of the field is Bubba Wallace, Ricky Stenhouse Jr., Cole Custer, Michael McDowell, Corey LaJoie, Chris Buescher, Ty Dillon, Todd Gilliland, David Reagan, Justin Haley, Daniel Hemrick, and Harrison Burton. As for my final rating for the GEICO 500 at Talladega, yeah, this was easily the best race of the year. Yeah, it had its messy moments. That second stage was very messy, and there were a lot of choo-choo moments during this race. But when you look at this race as a whole, the crazy batshit racing that we saw, the fact that the final stage went caution-free, we had 41 lead changes, 26 pure lead changes, and we also had a batshit insane last lap with a last lap pass for the win for the 30th time at Talladega, the most of any track in NASCAR history. And of course you have a popular driver in Ross Chastain, the watermelon man, who likes to celebrate by smashing a watermelon onto the ground from the top of his car, which is a very unique way to celebrate because he's a watermelon farmer by trade. Yeah, I would say this race is definitely deserving of being called the best race of the season, and for that to happen, it's going to get a 9 on the fuel gauge. So a 9 out of 10. I would say it's on the low spectrum of the 9, but there's no doubt about it. This was definitely the best race of the year thus far, although there's certainly a few races down the pipeline that could challenge for that spot, like Daytona at the regular season finale, and then of course the Bristol night race, which always seems to be a damn good race every single year. But yeah, there's a reason why this race is one of my favorites of the year. It has been for every single time that I've reviewed this race. It's gotten an 8 or above. I think 2019 it got a 9. 2020 it got a 10. Last year it got an 8, and then this year it got a 9. So it's definitely one of my favorite races of the year. And it's usually the Talladega race that's not got controversial bullshit, usually with the yellow line or whatnot. So yeah, this is definitely the best race of the year thus far. 9 on the fuel gauge for this race. Which brings us to next week's race, and it is a race that I have been dreading all year. Next week is Dover. And those of you who have watched the fuel know how much I fucking hate that racetrack. The racing there has been god awful. There's rarely been a good race there. But I am willing to keep an open mind because this is the next gen car, and I mean, this car has seemingly improved the racing on some of the shittier tracks that we've hated in the past. So I am hoping to God that next week's race at Dover is good. I want it to be good. I do not want to come on here next week and give a negative review about Dover. I've done it so many fucking times. I don't want to give a negative review next week. I don't. You know, I want to come on here next week and say, yeah, that was actually a damn good race. Dover actually put on a damn good race for once. Do I expect Dover to do that? No. Do I want it to do that? Yeah. Because, I mean, I don't want my time. I don't want to feel like my time was wasted, you know, watching this shit. It felt like that at Martinsville, which is definitely the surprise of the year. But I'm honestly hoping to God that Dover is good next week. I'm hoping that this car improves the racing there. I'm hoping. I got my fingers crossed because I want next week to be good. I do not want to have another Dover shit show review next week. I really don't. But that is going to do it for tonight's edition of The Fuel. Man, between both reviews, 2 hours of race review. My throat is sore as shit. But, I mean, for the most part, you know, 2 positive reviews and Talladega was good. So I told you that if we had a good race at Talladega tonight, then things would be above board. And that's exactly what it was. So, 10 races down, 26 to go. As we look towards the end of the season to see who will be crowned the 2022 champion. Who will it be? Who the fuck knows? There are some favorites like William Byron and Ross Chastain, but right now it's anybody's ballgame. So, thank you very much for watching tonight's edition of The Fuel, and I hope Dover next week doesn't suck. See you again next time, and until then, this is the Packer Man signing out. See you later. Thank you for watching tonight's video. Be sure to like and subscribe, you jackweeds.